How do I keep my startup employees from quitting? I was recently asked the question, what should I do to keep an employee that has quit from leaving? I was happy to answer the question because I have a perfect batting average as CEO of keeping employees from quitting. That's right, 0%. The key to keeping your employees from quitting is making sure your employees never get to the point where they want to quit. And we were very good at keeping our employees from getting to that point. In today's video, I'll share with you 10 strategies to retain your employees and keep them from quitting. I hope you like it. Hi, I'm Brett. On my channel, I help early stage startup CEOs like you raise money and grow your startup. So if this sounds like you, then hit that subscribe button and the bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. Let's get started. And let's start with number one on my list. Number one, compensate your employees fairly. Okay, this is an obvious one, I know. However, you can't expect great talent to keep working for a small salary. That may be true for you and your co-founders. However, your employees won't have the huge amount of equity that you and your co-founders have. Your employees, not you or your co-founders, should be the first people paid at the market rate. So bump their salaries up to the market rate as quickly as you can. This leads directly to my next point, number two on my list. Number two, refresh employee stock options. Refreshing stock options is one of the smartest ways to keep your employees from quitting. Let's say you give each employee an initial 4-year stock option grant. And it's a very generous grant. That's great. However, what happens after the 4 years are complete? Obviously, the financial incentive to stick around goes down unless you grant more stock options to your employees. Yes, you and your investors will be diluted when you refresh employee stock options. However, employee retention will be really high. I saw this play out at 2 companies I worked at in the same industry, so it's a great comparison. The first company, Maxim Integrated Products, had a policy of refreshing employee stock options every year with market rate grants. The second company, Micrel, didn't have a policy of generously refreshing employee stock options. The result was that the average Maxim employee stayed at Maxim for over 10 years. And the average Micrel employee stayed at Micrel for 4 years. Next, let's move to number 3 on our list. Number 3, give your team as much responsibility as possible. In other words, delegate. One of the most interesting people I ever worked for was Bill. Bill gave me a ton of responsibility at a very young age. As a result, I learned skills that I wouldn't have learned in a different environment years earlier. I took that lesson with me when I started my company, and I delegated as much as could be to my team. The result is your team gets to work on exciting things, and your time is free to do the things that only you can do. And it's a great retention tool because you're giving employees something that will be very difficult for a competitor to match. Next, let's move to number 4 on my list. Number 4, learn when to put on the brakes. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was from the founding CEO of Maxim Integrated Products, Jack Gifford. Gifford told me that one of the keys to being an effective CEO was learning when to push on the gas and when to put on the brakes. Yes, you are building a startup and you're going to need to push your team really hard. However, you also have to learn when to back off. If you just push your team, they will burn out. There will be times when you're going to need a Herculean effort in order to survive. Giving your team downtime will allow them to have the energy to ramp up when you really need them. Next, let's move to number 5 on my list. Number 5, have a commitment culture. The characteristics of a commitment culture is one where you value cultural fit, and it's just as important as the skills an employee brings to the company. It's a culture where you're looking for employees that love what they do and love what your company does. We looked for 4 things in every employee we hired: integrity, passion, cultural fit, and smarts. Anytime we hired someone that didn't fit the above criteria, they didn't work out. Every employee that fit those 4 criteria stayed with us for the duration of our company. Let's move to number 6 on my list. Number 6, promote from within every chance you get. If you combine giving employees lots of responsibility with promoting them, these employees will stick around for a long time. On the flip side, if you hire all your managers from outside the company, your team will quickly get the message they don't have a career path. For example, the company I cut my teeth at, Maxim Integrated Products, promoted from within for years. Then, for reasons I still don't understand, Maxim CEO Jack Gifford started hiring executives from outside the company instead of promoting from within. The executives didn't understand the company culture. It took a few years, but many senior people quit. And all of these outside executives failed, every single one of them. And with their failure, Maxim's growth stalled. Next, let's move to number 7 on my list. Number 7, be transparent, especially about the problems. I know it's scary, but you want to be open with your team about the problems your startup faces. If you're behind your development schedule, then share that with your team. If you're not meeting your revenue goals, then share that with your team. And if you're low on cash, then share that with your team too. Here's the deal. Your team is going to find out anyways. And even though it's scary, you build trust and loyalty when you share the challenges you face. The key is being steady at the wheel. Your team will follow you. For example, we shared with our team our financial status all the way through our company's life. So it wasn't a surprise when we had to cut everyone's salary to minimum wage for 6 weeks to save the company. Instead, the team rallied and nobody quit. Next, let's move to number 8 on my list. Number 8, learn from Netflix. Years ago, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings developed a culture manifesto for his company. There are some things that I really like in it and some things that I don't like. However, one of the things that I really like is the idea of not adding silly rules and procedures as your company grows. There's nothing that pisses great talent off more than stupid rules. One of the best engineers we hired, Greg, left his previous employer because of stupid rules they imposed on him. And before you think that we overpaid to get Greg, he actually took a large pay cut to join us. Next, let's move to number 9 on our list, which is also from Netflix. Number 9, get rid of any brilliant jerks. No matter how hard you try, you're going to hire a brilliant jerk. There'll be someone that creates a lot of unnecessary drama, and doesn't fit your company culture. Plus, no matter how great a talent you thought they were, I can almost guarantee you that the brilliant jerk you hired isn't that brilliant. Almost guaranteed. The problem with brilliant jerks is the toxic culture they bring with them. It makes life miserable for your employees. And if you don't do something about that brilliant jerk, you will start losing the good employees you have. Next, let's move to the most important one on my list. Number 10 on my list. Number 10. Hire a great, talented team that fits your company culture. Simply put, great people want to work with other great people. And there's no better incentive to stick around than to work with people that you can learn from, and someone that is just as passionate and excited as you are. If you combine a great team with interesting work and a great culture that values its employees, it's going to lead to a great work environment that is tough to leave. Think about this goal as you're making every hiring decision. Now, if this content is resonating with you, then please hit the like button right now. One final thought. Give your team all the credit. Building loyalty between you and your team is critical to employee retention. The simple rule of being CEO is you give your team all the credit and you take all the blame. This doesn't mean that you don't hold your team accountable for mistakes. It does mean that publicly, with your investors and your board members and in your company meetings, that you give your team all the credit for everything that goes right and that you take the blame for anything that doesn't go to plan. Trust me on this one. You'll get all the credit and blame anyways because you're the CEO. However, you'll build a huge amount of loyalty and support for and from your team. And this will directly keep your employees from quitting, which is the goal. Now, I have two more things for you today. First, my free startup pitch deck template. It has all the slides you need to develop an awesome pitch deck. Click the link below to get yours for free. Second, join my free group of startup CEOs, Zero to Pitch. It's a community for startup CEOs focused on growing their companies and raising funding for their companies. Click the link below to join. Finally, click the subscribe button to get notified every time I release a new video. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Thanks for watching today. Take care. Bye.